Welcome back. In the last video, we created the club workspace and invited members in. In this one, I'm going to walk you through the settings section where you can configure the rules that shape how the club actually operates. I'm going to open settings now. Only the club admin or someone with the right permissions can access this area. The first tab is General. This is where you manage the club's basic information: the name, the description, the currency. We already filled this in during setup, so I won't spend long here. But if anything were to change, this is where you would come to update it. Next is billing. This is where the club can see and manage its subscription. During setup, we selected a plan and added a payment method. Here, the admin can come back to review the current billing status and manage the subscription going forward, or even cancel their subscription. Financial rules is the next section. This is one of the most important parts of the setup because it's where the club defines how contributions, fines, borrowing, and profit distribution all work. Every club operates differently. Some require a fixed monthly contribution where every member contributes exactly the same amount by a set deadline. This is the fixed monthly contribution mode. Others use a minimum contribution model where members can pay more but must meet at least the minimum. This is the minimum monthly contribution mode. And some clubs run on a more flexible savings model with no fixed amount or strict deadline. This is the free savings contribution mode. For this example, I am selecting the fixed monthly contribution. That means every member is expected to contribute the same amount each month. I'll set that amount to 50,000 and that's this, it's set. Next is the fine setup. If the club uses fines, this is where the system defines how they are calculated. The club can decide the fine percentage, whether fines compound over time, and how often fines are assessed. I'll set the fine rate to 10% of the contribution amount. I am leaving compounding off for now, which means I'll also set the compounding rate to 0. So I will not check the enable fine compounding on unpaid fines, and I'll leave the compounding rate as 0. There is also an option for whether fines carry over after the year ends or whether they expire. Some clubs prefer that unpaid fines continue rolling into the next year. Others want a clean reset when the year begins. For this example, I'm setting fines to expire at year end. So I will check the expire end of year button, which is this, over the carryover button. Next is the fine assessment frequency. The fine assessment frequency controls how often the system checks for late contributions and applies fines. I'm keeping this on a monthly basis, assessed on the 5th of the following month. I'm going to set the deadline to the 5th of the following month, so a contribution for say January is expected by the 5th of February. So that's the fine assessment frequency is every month. The deadline month is the next month, and the deadline day of the month is the 5th day. In this case, if by the 5th of the following month the contribution is not made by a member, the system will automatically add a fine to that member's account. The next feature is the payment waterfall. When enabled, the system allocates any incoming payment in a specific order: fines first, then loan interest, then loan principal, and finally savings. This removes any guesswork about how payments are applied. For this example, I'm going to leave it unchecked It's there for clubs that want automatic allocation logic built in. Next, in our financial rules is the borrowing rules. The first consideration here is whether members with outstanding fines can still qualify for a new loan. Some clubs require members to clear their fines before borrowing. For the Compounders Club, members can borrow even with outstanding fines, so I am going to uncheck this. Next is the maximum loan formula. This defines how much a member can borrow. The system offers three options: a total of savings only, a total of savings plus allotted profits, or a multiple of total savings. If you choose the first option, you can only borrow up to how much you have in savings. If your club distributes profits, there is the option of borrowing up to how much you have in savings plus how much profits you have been allotted so far. If you choose the third option, you can borrow up to a multiple of your savings. This can be 0.5x, 2x, 3x, depending on your policy. I am going to choose the multiplier option and set it to 2x. I will check the include distributed profits for the multiplier. That means a member with 500,000 UGX in savings can borrow up to 1 million UGX. And because I have checked the include distributed profits in the multiplier base, if a member has been allotted some profit, that will be added to the savings to calculate their maximum credit limit. The next option is the default interest method. Here we have three options. With simple interest, interest is calculated only on the original principal. With reducing balance, interest is calculated on the remaining unpaid principal. As the borrower repays, the outstanding balance goes down, and so does the interest charged each period. With compound interest, interest is calculated on the principal plus any previously accumulated interest. In other words, interest builds on interest over time. And for our case, I am going to go with compound interest. The other consideration is profit distribution and withdrawal. This section defines how the club's profits are shared among members at the end of the year. The first is savings proportion. With this method, each member's share of the profit is based on their total savings balance at year end. So the more a member is saved, the larger their share of the profit. This is the default option. The second option is time-weighted savings. This method takes into account not just how much a person saved, but also how many months that money stayed in the club. For example, a contribution made in January has been available to the club for much longer than one made in December, so it earns a larger share of the profit. This option is useful for clubs that want to reward both the amount saved and the length of time the savings were invested in the club. The third option is equal share. With this approach, every eligible member receives the same share of the profits, regardless of how much each person saved. I'll select the savings proportion option for the Compounders Club, and I'll move on to the profit retention. This is the percentage of net profit held back for the club before distribution. If a club decides to retain 20% of profit and distribute 80% to the members, they can set the retention percentage to 20%. For this example, I am going to set the percentage to 0%, meaning all profits are distributed to members at year end. The maximum percentage a member can withdraw if they wish to withdraw can also be set. I am going to set it to 100%, meaning a member can withdraw up to 100% of their profit share at year end if they wish. Once all the rules are set, I save them so the system uses the club's policy going forward. So that's save financial rules. And financial rules saved. Next, I am moving to loan products. Okay, so they are not yet saved. So stay on this tab and save, and then loan products. Loan products let the club create standard borrowing options that members can apply for. Each product can have its own terms, interest structure, repayment duration, and penalty rules. If a product is enabled, it shows as active in status. The admin can disable it, edit it, or delete it as the club's needs change. Let me create a sample product to take you through how you would create one. I'll click Add Product. This emergency loan. I'll set the interest rate to 2%. I also need to choose a rate type. A fixed rate means the interest rate stays the same for the life of that loan. Any changes to the product settings will not affect existing loans. This is useful when the club wants predictable, stable borrowing terms. A floating rate, on the other hand, means the rate can change if the product settings are updated, even when there is an ongoing loan. This suits clubs that want flexibility and may adjust rates as policies and external environments evolve. I am going to go with a fixed rate. So anyone who takes out an emergency loan knows that their rate is locked in at 2% for the entirety of their loan duration. For interest method, I'll select compound interest again, consistent with the club setting in financial rules. Let's say that the club policy for an emergency loan is that it must be cleared within 1 month. I'll set the interest period to 1 month or 30 days, and the maximum duration I'll leave open-ended, meaning loans can run for as long as the member needs. The interest rate will be charged as per the club's policy in financial rules. We have said that an emergency loan must be cleared within 1 month. What happens if the borrower misses the repayment date? I am enabling the overdue penalty by checking the charge penalty interest on overdue loans. In case the product has no penalties, you leave this whole section unchecked. So when I check it, it activates the following fields. The overdue interest rate will become 5%, i.e. the rate will change from 2 to 5%. I'm setting the penalty to apply immediately, meaning the moment the 1 month term ends without repayment or with an outstanding balance, the borrower moves on to the overdue structure. For this field, penalty starts after dash periods past due date. I'll select 0. The moment the month passes, the defaulting member is penalized. How should overdue interest be calculated? Here we have two options. The first is normal interest plus penalty on top. With this, the system keeps the interest earned up to the due date and then starts charging the overdue rate for each period after that. The second is replace with overdue rate from loan start. Once the loan becomes overdue, the system recalculates everything from the original disbursement date using the higher overdue rate. It's treated as if the more expensive rate should have applied from the beginning. And that's what I'll go with for this video. There are also advanced options here. One advanced option is to use a different charging period once the loan is overdue. For example, the club was charging normal interest monthly, but once the loan is overdue, it may want penalty interest charged after 2 months instead. For this example, I'm going to check this and change the charging period to 2 months. So that's from monthly to now bi-monthly. Another advanced option is to escalate further if the loan is still unpaid. That means after the first overdue period, the system can move the borrower into an even higher rate for continued delay. For this example, I will not check the escalation. So to summarize the loan product, the emergency loan starts as a short-term 1 month loan at 2% fixed rate compound interest. And if it's not cleared on time, the system recalculates the entire loan using the overdue rate from the original disbursement date, i.e. the 5%. So let me add product. And here I have a second product. You can have as many products as you wish. The Compounders Club has only two products, the normal loan and the emergency loan. Moving on to roles and permissions, which is the last section I'll cover in this video. This is where the club controls who can do what inside the system. Not every member should have access to everything. Some people may only need to view their own activity. Others may need to approve payments, manage loans, or update settings. So this is where those boundaries are defined. The admin role. The admin role typically has full access. As you can see, full access to all club features. A standard member role is more limited by default setting, usually person activity and selected club-wide information. You can customize member access here. So let me customize the treasurer's permissions in this video. So this is the treasurer. They can view all contributions, they can view all loans, they can view reports. Maybe we don't want them to view the audit log, and we don't want them to invite members. Only the admin can invite members. They can approve loans, they can reject loans, they can let the admin manage the loan products, and they can create fines, delete fines, waive fines, run compliance checks. Yeah, and then we save their permissions. You can also add a role and give it the permissions that you want that role to have. So that's it for roles and permissions. By the end of this setup, the club has defined its general information, financial rules, loan products, and roles and permissions. This is the operating foundation for the club before we start recording any transactions. In the next video, I'll show you how to import historical data so the club can bring its existing records into the platform without starting from scratch. Thank you.